Hello everyone, I'm Judd Rubenfeld and this is Straight Down the Middle. Well, today the Trump administration announced that it had formally accepted that jumbo jet, that 747 from the Qatari royal family. Wait a second, is that legal? Can he do that? That's what we're going to talk about today. Now, first of all, got to tell you one thing. Count me in with those people who say that this is a lousy idea. It's a crazy idea. Qatar is a terror-supporting Middle Eastern country. On Air Force One, the President of the United States conducts top secret communications. From Air Force One, the President, in emergency circumstances, runs the whole United States government. He might even be issuing commands to the United States military to take military action. Now, do you really want him to be doing all that stuff on a jet that was for years under the control of and in the possession of a terror-supporting Arab state? I don't. There could be bugs all over that airplane. There could be kill switches turning off communications. There could be switches that turn off the air pressure. There could be things like that, even if the Qatari royal family doesn't know they're there. Now, could you possibly make such a plane safe for use as Air Force One? Well, you'd have to rip apart the guts, put it all back together again. Experts say that would cost $1 billion, and experts also say even then, you might not get all the listening devices out. So, do I think this is a good idea? No, I do not. I think it's a lousy idea. But this is not a national security podcast. This is a legal podcast. And that's what we're going to talk about. Is the acceptance of that gift legal? And guess what? What the president should do and what he can do legally, those are two very different things. So, what do some folks say? Some people say, hey, he can't accept that gift. It violates the Emoluments Clause of the United States Constitution. Does it? I don't think so. Contrary to what you may have heard, the Emoluments Clause does not prohibit the president from accepting gifts from foreign countries or foreign royal families. No. What it does do is it prohibits the president from accepting gifts from foreign states or foreign royal families without the consent of Congress. That's right. That's what it says, without the consent of Congress. And by the way, if you're wondering, that's why President Grover Cleveland, back in the 19th century, was able to accept the gift from France of the Statue of Liberty. Why? Because the United States Congress had passed a joint resolution authorizing him to do so. Well, wait a second. Does that mean the United States Congress has to pass a brand new joint resolution every time a U.S. officer abroad wants to accept a gift from a foreign country? No, it does not mean that, because back in the 1960s, Congress passed a statute giving its advance consent to certain gifts. So, here's something else that you shouldn't believe. The New York Times just reported today that Congress would have to take action to consent to the acceptance of that gift by Trump of the plane from the Qatari government. No, not necessarily. All depends on what that statute says. So, does that statute cover this gift of that plane to the United States? Well, let's think about it. That statute is used most of the time in most of its applications when a United States officer abroad accepts gifts of, quote, minimal value, unquote. Well, what counts as a gift of minimal value? The statute set that value at $100 back in the 1960s when it was enacted. Today, that amount is set at $480. So, the gift of that palace in the sky, valued at a couple $100 million, I don't think it's quite going to qualify as a gift of minimal value. I also don't think it's going to qualify under the other provision in that statute that exempts gifts of incidental travel expenses. Good try. I don't think it's going to qualify under that provision either. But there's another provision in the statute where the acceptance of that gift might very well qualify. What provision is that? The statute goes on to say that the president can accept a gift from a foreign state or foreign royal family of greater than minimal value if it appears, that's actually what the statute says, if it appears that saying no to the gift would cause embarrassment or offense, or if it appears that saying no to the gift would cause adverse consequences to U.S. foreign relations. Who gets to make that call, that it appears that saying no to the gift would cause those consequences? Does a court get to make that call? Well, guess what? There's no case law on the Emoluments Clause, almost no case law at all. So we don't have cases saying who gets to make that call, but it's a pretty good guess that when the President of the United States is being offered a gift by a foreign country, and somebody has to decide whether it appears that saying no to the gift would cause embarrassment or offense or adverse consequences for U.S. foreign relations, it's a pretty good legal guess that the president gets to make that call. And in the context of a large gift from a Middle Eastern country, which has already given us a couple $100 billion in business and is supporting a military base there to the tune of $8 billion and promising to spend more billions of dollars for the upkeep of that base. It's a pretty good guess that the president would be fully within his authority to determine that it appears that saying no to the gift would cause embarrassment or offense or cause adverse consequences to U.S. foreign relations. So bottom line, I think the president can lawfully accept that gift under the Emoluments Clause. But we're not quite at the end of the story. Here's why. Because that statute goes on to say something important. It says that when the president accepts a gift of more than minimal value under any of those clauses, that gift is deemed accepted on behalf of the United States, not on behalf of the president personally. And moreover, the moment it's accepted, it becomes automatically the property of the United States. Now, the president has apparently complied with that part of the statute because in today's announcement, the Trump administration is saying that the plane is being accepted on behalf of the United States and is going to be turned over to the Army for use as Air Force One. But there is a possible implication here that could be serious because it has also been reported, although this has not been confirmed or announced officially, it's been reported that part of the plan was that Trump, after using that plane as Air Force One, would give it to his Presidential Library Foundation. Is that legal? Well, guess what? Presidential library foundations are not governmental entities. Did you know that? No, they're private entities consisting of donors or institutions, folks who have given money to build and support a presidential library. So that's not the U.S. government. The Library Foundation is a private entity. So no, I do not think that the president can agree to give that airplane to his own Presidential Library Foundation, which, could have some implications because depending on what the board is that's running that foundation, who's running it, who's on that foundation, well, I guess that plane could be used by people in the Trump organization. And that, I don't think, would be legal. So, bottom line, president can accept that gift on behalf of the United States for use as Air Force One. Good idea? No. Legal? I think so. Can he accept it in order to give it to his Presidential Library Foundation afterwards? I don't think so. Question. Is there any legal remedy against a United States officer who violates that statute, the statute in which Congress gives its consent to gifts? Well, the statute actually says that a United States Attorney General can bring an action against an officer who violates that statute. So in principle, a future Attorney General, a few years from now, could bring an action against former President Trump if that plane were given to the Presidential Library Foundation. Does the statute go on to say what the consequences would be? Yes. It says there could be a penalty imposed in the case. How much of a penalty? Statute says that the penalty can be any amount not greater than the retail value of the gift. In short, a couple $100 million. Could that remedy portion of the statute actually be enforced against the president? I'm not so sure about that. That could depend on doctrines of presidential immunity under recently decided cases. So I don't really know if that remedy provision is enforceable against the president. But here's what I think. If I were President Trump, I would not be giving that plane to my Presidential Library Foundation, which, as I say, might be an unlawful use of that gift. Okay, that's all for now. I'll see you later.